Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Jenny. I'm from jennycarddesigns. Thanks so much for joining me today. My YouTube channel contains content that is intended to share paper crafting tutorials and inspiration with all of you. I hope that you enjoy. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing a note card set project using the jennycarddesigns watercolor floral 6x6 pattern paper pack. I'm going to create a bunch of cards using some of the elements in this pattern paper pack. So I'm just going to flip through and decide which pieces that I want and what I think will coordinate nicely together to create my note card set. So I've pulled out a green and then a green leaf pattern, and then I've also got this sort of gray stone pattern and some pink florals. So what I'm going to do is start with the green. I'm going to cut this piece down to 5 inches. I'm going to rotate it, and then I'm going to cut it down to 1.5 inches. So this is going to give me 4 strips that measure 1.5 by 5. So I'm going to cut each of those strips down to 1.5 inches. And the very last one is just a little bit shy of 1.5 inches. You won't really notice it because each piece will be on a separate card. Then I'm going to grab the pattern that's going to coordinate with this, and I'm going to cut this piece down to 4 inches. And then I'm going to rotate it and cut it down to 3 inches. So this is going to give me 2 panels that measure 3 by 4. So I'm going to cut 2 pieces in the same way. So I'll get those 4 strips of green that are 1.5 inches, and then I'll have 4 panels that measure 3 by 4. I hope that makes sense. So I'm going to do this exact same thing for the other 2 patterns that I have. I'm going to cut down that little gray stone pattern and the floral pattern. I've got some scraps left over that I can create more projects with, or decorate my envelopes, or embellish the inside of my card. I'm not going to use those today. I'm going to set those aside and keep working. So I've got some card bases here. These are 110-pound Neenah Classic Crest Solar White cardstock, and they are cut down to top folding A2 size card bases. So I'm just going to grab my patterns and sort of figure out how I want my cards to be laid out. And I felt like they could have used a little bit of separation in between. So I grabbed some black cardstock to sort of test my theory to see if the black cardstock would sort of help separate those colors. And I like the way that that looked. So I just kind of grabbed some scraps just to test it out, and once I was happy with it, I decided to go ahead and start cutting up all of my scraps to fit in behind these pattern papers. I think it just helps create more of a defined element between the patterns. I'm going to use some liquid glue and my trimmer. I'll glue those panels down to the black cardstock, and I'll use my trimmer just to cut off the edges. I'm just creating a little skinny border. It's like 1/8 of an inch. I'm not really measuring. I'm just going by eye to see how it looks. So once I'm happy with that, I'm going to do that to all of my panels. So I've got all of my 1.5 inch strips cut out and adhered to some black cardstock, and all of my 3x4 panels adhered to black cardstock. So I have 8 of each. And then once that's done, I'm going to start adhering these to my card bases. So I adhere the strip to the left of the card base, then that little rectangle panel sort of in the center. Okay, and I like the way that looks. I'm going to do that for all of my patterns. And then this is what we'll have. We'll have 8 note cards ready for some sentiments. We'll have 4 patterns with the leaf and 4 patterns with the floral. Okay, next up we're going to need a sentiment for this. I have a Simon Says stamp photopolymer set here. I'm not sure of the name. I'll leave it linked in the description box down below. So I just grabbed the word thank you from there, and I've got some more scraps of black cardstock. And I'm going to line this up into my little mini Misty here, and I'm going to heat emboss these sentiments. So I need 8 of them. So I'm going to line this up on my Misty, and I'm going to grab a few heat embossing supplies. I've got a coffee filter, some anti-static powder, a paintbrush to sweep away any excess, and I've also got Alabaster Ultra Fine Detail White Embossing Powder. So I'm just going to pick up that stamp with the door of my Misty, and I'm going to pat down my cardstock with anti-static powder bag. This way my powder only goes where I want it to go. And I'm going to use some VersaFine clear sticky ink for this. And I'm just sort of blowing away any of that excess anti-static powder, and I'll use my brush to help sweep that away as well. I'll ink up my stamp nice and good with that clear sticky ink. And then I'll close the door of my Misty and press and make sure that I get a good transfer of ink. And then I'm going to grab my coffee filter and pour the embossing powder over top of my stamped images, making sure that I get good coverage. And I'll just tap off the excess. And anything that's left over, I'm going to funnel back into the little jar. And then off to the side, I've got my heat gun warming up so that it's good and hot. When I'm ready to bring it to the paper, it will emboss very quickly. I'm just going to set this powder off to the side. I'll grab my heat tool and I'll start melting this powder. And then once that's done, I'm just going to get everything cleaned up, and I'm going to fussy cut out these sentiments. I'm just going to grab some scissors and take my time, and I'm going to trim out the word thank you and just have the little tiniest little black border around that word. And then I like the way that looks. So I've done that for all 8 of my sentiments for all of my cards. And then I'm going to grab some liquid glue, and I'm going to adhere these down to my card bases. So I've just kind of lined it up to the bottom center of my card. And then I'm happy with the way that looks. I'm going to do that again to all 8 of my cards. So now I have a really beautiful and elegant thank you note card set, and I've got one that's a little bit of a masculine feel, so it doesn't have to have florals on it. So I like the way that that looks.
Okay, that's going to be it for today's video. Here's a close-up look at our finished card project. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend it here with me. I appreciate the support as always. If you haven't subscribed to my channel already, I would love for you to do so. Coming up on screen are a couple of videos I think that you may enjoy, including an entire playlist to my Chop It Up series, which shares tons and tons of different ways to chop up your cardstock and use it for card making and crafting. Have yourself a lovely day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!